Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Round 2 of the Qatar Masters Open 2015. The highest rated, my understanding, highest rated average open tournament ever in the history of chess. And the first time, I saw on a video earlier today that the reigning world champion is entered in an open tournament. That's the first time ever for that as well. And of course, speaking of world champions, this is a game from round 2 with Magnus Carlsen as white, a young man. I know he's Indian. His last name is Aravindh, something like that. There's white. I'd say his first name, but it's actually harder to pronounce. And as black, current world champion Magnus Carlsen. This is a really, really interesting game. Let's get to it. It's going to be a Sicilian. Now that's an unusual move there. B3. One of the reasons why I like E4 as a white player, but I hate playing against Sicilians. But that's interesting. Maybe I ought to try that sometime. G6, bishop, knight. Now it looks like you're going to lose, of course, by pushing that knight, but you really don't. Knight to D5. E6. You just go F6. Pawn takes, queen takes. Magnus handled that pretty well. I'm not sure about queen takes. Let's go back here and see what the computer says. That is the #1 move in the computer, but the next two moves are close in score as well. Knight takes is #1 by a hair's breadth. That's probably what I would have done, or bishop takes. But Magnus decides queen takes, knight c3, knight c6, just developing. That bishop to b5 I was a little surprised about. C4 is probably more likely, but he went B5, knight C7. Now this is one I was really surprised about. Now we talk about quite often, and other people that do videos talking about what I call the minor exchange. Bishop for knight. Bishop C4, bishop B2, bishop D3, anything those are acceptable. He actually traded, which I was really surprised. Queen takes, of course, not doubling up the pawns. Now black has the bishop pair already, and a tiny advantage, and we're on move 9. So obviously the young man didn't play the opening as well as he should have. And queen to F3, this is a move here I think he's intimidated. It's Magnus Carlsen. It's the highest rated player ever in the history of chess. He's got the white pieces. Walk away with a draw with this game would be huge for this kid. So he puts the queen there, hoping that he'll trade. But Magnus, of course, just plays bishop d7. White castle's long, and Carlsen goes e5, just improving his position. And it is slowly improving. Queen takes, bishop takes. Pawn takes, of course, is not as good. Goes after f4. Pawn takes, knight e4, and black pawns are a shambles. But after b takes, f3. He can't go knight f3. This bishop is bearing right down because you double up the pawns. So he has to go f3, knight e6. I think Magnus sits really well right here. Got really good control of the center, a lot more space. These pieces are located very well. He's got to develop the dark squared bishop yet, but knight, bishop b7. Rook comes over. Now this I was a little surprised about. He went b5. He's going after him. Maybe he feels that this kid's being intimidated by him. Well, he is Magnus Carlsen. And maybe that'll ruffle him a little bit. He moves the rook over. King f7. Connect the rooks. No point in casting when the queen's off the board. Knight d1. That was an interesting move. F4 is the computer's choice as well as D3. Right now it's an overpoint advantage for black already. And we're on move 16, so obviously the kid messed up. Knight at the D1, A5, knight E3. That's a good spot for that knight. Bishop D6. Now he puts the knight back. And the computer calls for that as well. Was he just moving that knight around to wait? I'm not sure, to see what Magnus was going to do and react to him. It's not a good idea when you have to react to the world champion, or any opponent for that matter. H5. and a4. B takes, pawn takes, B takes, knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes. It all looks fairly decent, even though a tiny advantage for black. Now this is starting to heat up a little bit, or hotting up as the English say. All those pawns on the board, those bishops aren't, I mean, they're okay, don't get me wrong, for black, but not really effective yet. B4, Magnus decides to close up the queen side. Just close it down, to heck with it. And that was a choice he made. I'm not really sure. Now, at this point, I might want to add run, move 20. White is in very severe time trouble. It's not too bad right now, but my understanding of the time controls were an hour and a half for 40 moves with a 30-second increment from move 1. Knight e4. That knight's in a really, really good spot. Now, there's a ton of different variations and twists concerning pushing the pawn here or here. And there's a lot of tricky stuff going on here. But right now, he's got to worry about his bishop, which he moves him. The knight goes to c4. Now, the computer shows a tiny advantage for black. I like white here. And he's not winning by any means. Don't get me wrong. It's not even close. But I think white's a lot easier to play right now. I think the young man has done very well, considering kind of his opening fiasco in a way, to sit this good. And no really bad moves on Magnus's part. Maybe a couple of tiny inaccuracies. It's kind of like driving off course. 1 degree. At the beginning, it doesn't seem like much, but over time, it starts, that 1 degree fans out. H4. Try to get some action on the king side. Now, there's a couple of things I probably would do. I probably would check. I don't think it matters which knight. Probably the E knight to D6 check. Not forcing him to take the trade with the bishop, but good idea. Or move his king off to G7. But I think white really wants the king where he is. There's all kinds of tactics involved with this rook here. So he goes G4. H takes, H takes. And a very natural move. Rook to H3. He's probably thinking, I'll chase the knight off. Rook takes. Now, this is a move I'm not sure the young man really gave a lot of time to. He's on move 24 and his time's starting to go down. F4 is probably pretty good. And there's a lot of tricks to this. A lot of tricks to this. So maybe stop the video, set up on a regular chessboard and look through them. From this point on, there's a lot of tricks. G4. If he had gone F4 instead, after bishop takes, rook takes, pawn takes, G takes, over there, it's about the same, but I still think white's okay. But after G4, rook A to D8, it wasn't probably the best move in the world for Carlsen. I think G5 is probably his best bet. Now, granted, with G5, this knight's going to come around and get a nice square right here. But sometimes you got to give something up to get something. Rook to D8. G5 for white. Takes his shot. Bishop takes. Pawn takes. Pretty nice right here on this king. Knight to F4. If you're going to put a knight in a good spot, and at the same time, close the file up. Very good. Pawn takes. But Magnus is a little slicker. He doesn't take. Because if he takes, rook takes check. Pawn can't take because it's pinned against the king. So he moves the king. And also to guard the E5 pawn especially was the main reason. Give you an idea just to show you. Rook takes, king E6, rook F2, and it's over. Knight e3. And I think white has turned the corner. He's not winning, but he's sitting fairly well. And I think Magnus knows this. And I think he decides to go after the kid's nervousness or take a risk, so to speak. Who's black going to do here? Rook to f8, rook to h5. Tries to go g5. I was a little surprised at that. That's why I think he took the gamble. He decided he can take this pawn now. And rook can't take because this pawn will take back. Knight to d5 just to guard the pawn. That's a really good spot for that knight, being on a light square. Can't be chased off by the bishop. But you don't want the knight to take either. Black takes, knight takes, pawn takes check. That pawn is really dangerous on f6. So he just goes bishop to d6. Give me an idea. Knight takes, pawn takes, and that passed pawn is going to push. Bishop d6, rook g1, going after the pawn. Magnus decides to guard it. Rook g4. Right now white's on move 31. He's going to make his 32nd move, and he's under incredible time pressure. And we're talking less than 2 minutes. Even though you got to remember there's a 30-second increment. And he's basically playing an increment. Rook g4. Rook h4. Hoping he's going to trade. But he doesn't, and he makes a really good move here. Now, it's a computer's second choice. It likes knight to e3 first, but I like this move a lot. And that's rook back. There's some strange stuff where, look at this scenario where the pawn pushes. If rook takes, knight checks. Picking up the rook. And if rook takes, rook checks. And it's mate. So you have to be very careful here. And that's what Magnus does, g4. Hoping if he goes g3, rook will take, which will be his doom. Knight e3. g3, same scenario. Rook takes the pawn on g3. Knight checks on e2. If the rook takes, it's going to be mate. He can't. He has to move the king and then he takes the rook. So he can't take that pawn. And now that pawn's looking bigger and bigger and bigger. f7 is the computer's choice, and I agree. But he goes knight f5 in time trouble. And that's the beginning of the end for the young man. This is another slick move. Rook here. What a cool character Carlsen is. Cool character. f7, rook g6. That f8 square is more than covered by the bishop and the rook. King to d1. And the young man didn't resign. Here he lost on time. Now here you are in a tough game with Magnus Carlsen. And you're holding your own for quite a while. Then you get in time trouble. And the nerves get to you. And so a kid got flustered. Just completely lost track of time. And this is where he flagged. I think d4 might have been a better move than after pawn takes. e5. Bishop e7. I still think black's okay. But I still think white can hold. But it didn't happen. Because after king to d1 on his 37th move, I'll take that back, g2. And then he flagged. What's he going to do with that? There's nothing he can do. It's not lost, but it's damn near lost. But I know it's lost when you have very little time left. That bishop now on b2 is shut out. The knight's doing pretty good duty on f5, but that pawn on g7 is just a monster. Anyway, folks, that was the best game and the most interesting game from round 2 of the Qatar Masters Open 2015. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank all my new subscribers I've gotten in the last few weeks. Thank you very, very much. I personally appreciate it. I don't get that many views on my channel here. There's a lot of chess guys on here, and I hope to make it entertaining. And those of us that really love to play, I hope I've helped make that love of the game even more. And as I always say, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.